Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Vosberg again. Second verse, same as the first, here for part two of spirituality and the arts. For today, we're going to start with our reading from Living Spring. So, doing the old random flipperoo. Chapter 139, concerning the work of salvation. For God did not appoint to us to suffer wrath, but to receive salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ. Paul, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 9. Why are we not understood? What is the reason for the loneliness that invades our lives? What are the reasons for the problems that surround us? Why so much darkness and bitterness surrounding our footsteps? And each such question we ask ourselves is usually followed by desperation and rebelliousness. And under lethal waves of anger, we claim favors that we think are owed to us. We say we are disappointed in our family, forsaken by our friends, misunderstood by our colleagues, and even persecuted by our brothers and sisters. Mental intemperance brings to our innermost being the thorns of disenchantment and perilous organic imbalances, turning our lives into a rosary of lazy, sickly complaints. This happens, however, because the Lord has not appointed us to the dark precipice of wrath, but to the work of salvation. No one can work in the darkness of disorder. No one can help but continuously harming others for the sheer pleasure of harming. No one can bless one's daily chores by cursing them at the same time. No one can be both a friend and a tormentor. If you receive notice of the gospel in the world of your soul, then prepare yourself to help infinitely. Earth is our school and our workshop. Humankind is our family. Each day is a blessed opportunity to learn and to help. No matter how bad your situation may be, always strive to be helpful and supportive, and you will be involved in the blessed work of salvation to which the Lord has called us. I almost want to say amen after that one. But we have to say a prayer. So, dear Lord, wonderful masters, mentors of Seeds and Light, be with us now as we participate in this study. Help us to understand this knowledge, let it become part of us and inspire us with conversations, topics for further discussion, and how we can use this topic to guide our paths towards your infinite light and love. As we participate in this class, open our eyes, our ears, our minds to that which is around us, that we may see God's messages to us and the words of the mentor speaking to us in all the different forms and mediums that we see around us. In your name, we open this meeting. Amen. So, welcome everyone. Glad to see you here today. Like I said, this is the second verse, so it was the first. We're picking up where we left off from last week. And with us, we're hoping that you will be inspired again to revisit some of these videos and movies that we've seen and how we can think about them in a new way, in a new light. So starting off, same as last week, I want to bring it up again, the influences of the spirits and the efforts to enlighten humanity. Spirits inspire artists, poets, musicians, writers, inventors to create new and profound works to promote thought and implant new ideas. We've seen this with many different things out there. Last week I mentioned Santos Dumont, the Wright brothers with the airplane. There's other ones out there with bringing rubber or any other new creation to humanity that helps us to advance further, not only physically, but also spiritually and morally as well. These works can reach out to those who are not even awakened or aware. As I said last week, who's to say that many of these things, that movies that I had watched previously, didn't help prepare me for being introduced to Spiritism. Opening the thoughts, planting the seeds, just as we are told to plant the seeds of our own harvest. How maybe these movies were divine seeds to help awaken us to our own spirituality and morality. The pathway through which human moral evolution is guided can be seen through many of these works, where the beauty is awestruck, looking at Michelangelo's David or the Sistine Chapel, and all these wonderful works specifically from the Renaissance. But even today, there's some wonderful masterworks of art that can inspire us and have us think in different ways, and how things can be different if we just perceive it slightly differently. So that again, the last topic here, the teachings of the Spiritist doctrine can be found in many works. As I said, I'm picking topics that are not Spiritist based. They're not, as far as I know, they're not propounded by the doctrine at all. And yet, the principles of the doctrine are well within. That's the whole purpose of this, is saying that if we were to look around us, we will see things that reaffirm, just as Allan Kardec mentioned us to check. When we encounter a spirit, we're supposed to, verify and deduce whether it is false or true. The same we can do with the movies. We can sit there. Is this something that inspires, enlightens us? Or is it something that's there just for our amusement that we can just casually enjoy for a little bit but disregard? So with that, we'll go into our first one. And as we brought it up a couple times in last week, I had to bring it back. We're going to start with The Matrix that was released in 1999. Can't believe it was back then. So,
and I never watched it.
Well, I was going to say I would encourage you to, but since it is also very action-based, I can see why not.
I really never thought about that it would be any message in it,
Well, that's the point. It's exactly it. It's like, how do you think of a movie having a point to it?
Yeah.
But I definitely remember after seeing this, having all these conversations. I saw this in college, so I'm sitting there seeing this, and I remember we're back there and we're coming back to seeing it. We're all talking about it, discussing it, and our minds were blown, thinking, "Oh my God, are we actually still in the Matrix? Are we everything else?" And then even to this day, how many memes do we see out there? It's even to this day, we were talking about people in politics, are they red pilled or blue pilled, or they've taken some of these aspects forward. And even within Spiritism, we can kind of use the red pill, blue pill analogy.
Okay, I guess I learned something that I had no idea about.
No idea. But again, this is me personally, this is one of the reasons why I love science fiction movies, because in many ways they do allow us to tap into moral quandaries, assess it, and then it says, but do it within a framework. It says, oh, this isn't happening in real life, but we're using this science fiction world or even fantasy worlds, to use that as the playground, the workshop, to discuss and play with it and diagnose it and see it, and like how things play out. And it's interesting to see how science fiction attacks it. And this one does this. This one takes a few ideas, plays with them, tinkers with them a little bit, but gives you that chance to think. But still saying, okay, it's separated from the real world. But it does, again, since it forces you to think, that's the key. That's the seed.
Okay.
So I'll start with the first image is, of course, the scene of the red pill, blue pill moment, which if you can see on the screen here, you can sit there and see like this one was a lovely trick of cinematography where you sit there, you have the person reflected in both glasses, but yet only one hand is in each lens. You have the red pill and you have the blue pill. And of course, in the movie, they bring up Alice in Wonderland, and they sit there and it says, like, you pick the red pill, you'll chase the white rabbit, you'll fall down, and you find where the truth lies. And then you take the blue pill, you stay in Wonderland, and you go back in thinking everything you want to do. Ignorance, bliss.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sitting here saying, like, what have we done in life? Now, when you come, for those that come here to Spiritism and things like this, and when I brought up with one of the other groups I was at had a chance to visit, one of the things we were mentioning about is how, if you've been introduced to Spiritism, if you're here and you're studying and you've been in it for any considerable length of time, in many ways you could say you've taken the red pill. You want to see the truth. You want to figure out what's really going on. You want to find the things that you can't see, the things that are outside the five senses, like last week with the sixth sense. So you're opening your mind, you're expanding yourself, and you're realizing that there are forces at work that we don't understand, that we can't even perceive. And I'm not talking quantum physics at this point, but we do have this moment here where we can sit there and see this character, this depiction of saying, hey, you have a choice.
Does he take the pill?
He does.
Okay.
So he takes the red pill, and that's when we go on the Wonderland. That's when we find out that's when he is able to unplug from the Matrix in this movie. So then that starts the concept of what is the real world and what is not. And he has this confusion between, especially in the first time, because he wakes up not knowing anything about it. And it's like, oh, it's weird and different and everything else, and not realizing that that's the real world. And what he was in was the simulation. When he was in the Matrix, he was in that. Now let's take that to what we do in our spiritual lives. Our spiritual home is the real world. In our physical body, what we're doing right now is the Matrix.
Okay.
So, and we play with this dichotomy, and we do see it. But at the same time, as we will see, for those that watch the movie at least, you can see that the people on the outside can influence the people that are inside. They would sit there.
Can or can't?
They can.
Oh, okay.
They have, like in this one here, because this is still before the times of the iPhone and everything else. So they had fancy phones that they'd hit a button and it would extend out. So they'd call on it. So they were sitting there and they would say, like, operator, and then they would request stuff. And then they would be, because they'll go through the movie, and they'll be downloading directly into their brains knowledge. So they'll learn how to fight kung fu, fly a helicopter, all kinds of crazy things. And they're just downloading it. But then they're calling for help. They call the operator for help from outside the Matrix that's following. So, and then again, this next one here is just kind of like it's probably using the meme itself, where it's like you have the two hands with the red pill, the blue pill. So, but it shows in here, if you look, it's like the weird code they use in the movie, where it kind of uses like almost every character known to man, and a few that are probably not even recognizable. So, and I think I have another one in here that does the same thing, where you just see the screen. Yeah, it's like, well, but then again, how often do we not think about that? Where it's like, but if we, instead of saying like code, like a master devious code, what if we think about that as God or humanity in our life? So, whereas we can start to see things in a different light, that we can perceive a different world. Same thing like with this image here, where we're seeing here that we have Neo, the main primary character, Keanu Reeves' character. All of a sudden, he opens his eyes, and now he sees the world in code. But what if, like us, can see spirits around us?
So is this like the real world or the Matrix?
He's inside the Matrix.
Mm-hmm. So this is the inside the Matrix.
Yes, but he's seeing everything written as code.
Uh-huh.
So he's seeing the Matrix, and he's seeing the influences, everything else, and he knows that you got the three agents in the middle, that the Matrix is controlling more, so they're coming up brighter, so that they're having more of the influence. But he can sit there and see everything around him. So, and that way it's like, but imagine again, if we had that sight, to the spiritual side where we can see the impacts, see the spirits, see what they're doing, see that they're rendering passes, that they're doing everything else. What would it be like when we can see the impacts of our morality? If we were to see the waves of our thoughts go out from us, the good ones, the bad ones, and everything else, and seeing the battle between when we meet someone, it's like, why are we clashing? Why are we? Then you can kind of see that would be something beautiful to see. But and then in this one here, this top one here, I was like, what are some of the other things too? The doctor teaches us the power of our thoughts. We control our life. We control how our life is going to shape up and continue. We keep broadcasting our spiritual thoughts, our desires, our wishes, and other spirits, good, bad, and different, pick up on that and they come to our aid. As we discussed about obsessors and everything else, people with vice, if you have a vice, you're going to bring spirits of that same vice. They'll kind of nudge you and keep telling you, hey, I need my fix too. Hey, indulge in this vice for me so I can pull that, live off your emanations, the vampirism, the parasitic influences that many of these obsessor spirits have. But then we have the ability to sit there and say, no, we have our thoughts. We have to forcibly correct ourselves to say, okay, I'm outgrowing you. I'm going to be something bigger, something grander. And this is kind of like what we see this in this movie, where we see this character go from the zero to hero. And now here we are towards the end of the movie, and he's able to command the Matrix. It will listen to him. With a thought, he can stop bullets. He can...
also, all of these are bullets?
Bullets that are being shot at him. And he just, instead of dodging him as he had in the past, he goes and basically says, no, and puts his hand up and everything stops. So he would control it. He controls the Matrix. And the same thing with humanity. Every human being has the impact to control the Matrix of our real world. And if we all improve ourselves, the world improves. And this includes the spirits around us. So, moving on to another one, this one I'll do kind of shorter, was a movie called Dark City that came out in 1998. Another science fiction one, bit of a thriller, kind of a scary one too. But it has this idea it reaffirms in this movie too that you have it brings an alien race and says, oh, we use your dead as vessels. But then they also have the power of thoughts, and that they use this power of thought to control everything. They're in the city and they have their machines, and then whatever they think becomes reality. And you have this character in the story that would eventually learn to take control of the machines from himself. The power of survival. He finds a strength within himself. But another thing too, one of the reasons why I ended up picking this one as a movie topic too, is they have this crazy notion in this as part of their through line, and that what they would do is they would every night they'd make everyone go to sleep, and then they would change memories. Mm-hmm. They would imprint memories in every single person in the city, giving them all different memories, different backgrounds, new things like art. It's like, well, today you will be a baker. Tomorrow you will be a banker. And then the day after that, you'll be a pauper living on the street. They play around. Because
it's almost like that every day
they do this every day, but it's always at nighttime there because they don't like the sunlight. But as they would do this, one of the things that would come, they're sitting there, it's like they're trying to unlock the soul. They're trying to figure it out. And they're thinking a person they're thinking memories are the soul. Not realizing, no, it's not. That's why I picked this movie. Because here you have...
What is the name of the movie?
It's called Dark City.
This one I've never seen.
No. It's It's a good one. It's a little bit slower pace. It has its little thrills and everything else, but it does have its moments to it. And
they all look the same.
These are all the aliens here. Like it says, this is one of the movies that I won't say it's got a cult following, but it has its own subgroup to it.
Yeah.
But it was definitely one of the more interesting ones where you can sit there and have these characters come in, and they will, like it says, they're different people every night. And then, but at the same time, they'll sit there and say they'll be imprinted with some of these ideas. And it says, have you ever been to Shell Beach? Well, Shell Beach doesn't exist because what's at the beach? Sun, surf, everything else. And it's like, and since this is a group of aliens that they don't like the light, using kind of like a vampire trope. So they think about Shell Beach all the time, but they never go until the end of the story, when the hero saves the day. So this one's a shorter one, but again, pulling on threads. So this next one here is one I mentioned last week, Pay It Forward. So, and this was good to rewatch again yesterday, especially considering, again, this is one that, oddly enough, does not have a lot of pictures available online for me to download and grab. So unfortunately for me, this one is very limited, but at the same time, it had a very great...
And it's the same boy
from Sixth Sense, Haley Joel Osment. He literally did this one a couple years later, maybe a year later. So...
yeah, I remember this movie.
Yeah. So I literally had to take a picture of my TV screen just to get this photo. And this was the assignment. This is what started it all. Think of an idea to change our world and put it into action. Simple words. Now this is taking place with kids that were 7th grade. So you had all kinds of different things where you were saying like, hey, how the group there was going to send a message to all the kids in China, telling them all to jump at the same time, to throw Earth off its axis, to pay it forward. The idea of introducing a karmic law to the thing, which is something that, oddly, and like I said, and I know I've even put it to practice in my own personal life. I had a story of I was up in New Jersey, went to go shopping in a mall. I pull into a parking spot. I open my door. There's a person's wallet right there. Fell out of his pocket. Everything's in it. Money, credit cards, driver's license, everything. So I take the driver's license, find the address. I leave the mall, go deliver it, give it to him. And he says, oh, you want some money for this? And I says, no, pay it forward. Help someone else. So, and same reaction. People in the movie couldn't figure out the idea. Is like, what? Are you sure you don't want me to reimburse you or do everything else? No, pay it forward. So I end up going through, and just as Trevor, Haley Joel Osment's character, does, he kind of does this little diagram. So I had to sit there and do the same diagram myself to follow through, because he started off and he had 3. He says, if I help 3 people, and they have to be, and it has to be something that they can't do. So you just can't just help someone randomly.
Sure.
It has to be big. It has to be something they cannot physically do. So Trevor starts with a homeless man, invites him in, gives him something to eat, lets him sleep in the back of the pickup truck, and all this other stuff, gives him some money, allows him to go and gets a job. So, but what Trevor doesn't know, and it's weird, because in the movie he ends up crossing out, because Jerry, he finds him, he was working in a motel, loses the job, and Trevor, Haley Joel Osment's character, got him that job. It gave him money and helped him to get this job. And he goes and finds him he went back to being a junkie. He got addicted again. And so he puts a big old X on his notebook, thinking, oh, it failed. It's starting to fail. Mm-hmm. Except it didn't fail. We find out that the morning after, before he leaves, he ends up fixing his mother's truck. so that the engine would run. Oh, that way you can get some more money out of it when you sell it.
Mhm.
So he's already paying it. He already paid it forward. Even though he fails later on, he started the ball rolling. So Trevor, he moves on to his teacher, and he goes and tries to help his teacher out and getting him to open up why he burned and all this other stuff. He's sitting here trying to find, and he also tries to connect him to his mother and everything else so that he would have a better life. And so he's starting on this one, and then he moves on to his friend Trevor, which is the sad ending to the movie. Is he was sitting there like he chickened out once and says, I wanted to help my friend. I didn't want him to get beaten up, and it froze, and he got beaten up again. But when it came the second time, that's when he goes in. But that's the time also the tragedy strikes.
Yeah.
But not knowing that his movement had already started. It's already gone out. It had already left town because
if every person helped 3 other people, now these 3 other people are helping 3 each, it becomes a big number.
So, and he was only focusing in on his little group of 3, and he realized, and he thought one of them failed, not realizing that one probably had the biggest impact. In the course of the whole movie, he had reached out. He had actually started, and he did 2, and that we see in the movie. He went in, he helped his mother get the car started. Later on, after he says, like, I can't be here in Vegas anymore, I got to go, he hitchhikes to Portland, Oregon, and he goes in, he sees this woman standing on the bridge about ready to throw herself off and commit suicide, and he's sitting there, he's like, no. It's like, I'm here. I was like, my life sucks, but, I mean, would you at least have a cup of coffee with me? Saves her life by offering her a cup, by sitting there saying, have a cup of coffee with me. So he's already on set. He's already helping a second person. And he's already in Portland when the whole part of the movie takes place in Vegas. So now it's going out beyond. But then we start to see that as it works backwards through the movie, like her mother, she tries to reconnect with her mother, who has been living in a station wagon. She just goes, travels up, sleeps and lives and out of her car, alcoholic and everything else. She goes, she tries to reconnect with her mother and sit there and they find a moment, and says, to the point where grandma can be in Trevor's life. She says, like, hey, when you're with Trevor, you're sober. After you leave, you can get drunk all you want. But while you're there, you got to be sober. And she does. But at the same time, she also goes and helps a person that was robbing a store. And she says, you know what? I got to help somebody. So she goes and helps this other person that's robbing a store, puts him in the car, goes away, gets away so he can be free. And he's sitting there, eventually being a criminal and everything else. He gets wounded. He's in the hospital. And then he sees this lawyer with a daughter, and the daughter's having an asthma attack. And the nurse that is doing the triage and saying, "Oh, you're having asthma. You're not serious enough. This guy, he's bleeding. He's got everything else." And the kid says, "No. I see that she's really in distress. She really needs help. Put her in front of me." To the point where he pulls out a gun and shoots and scares everybody there. So he gets arrested. But he got that girl the attention she needs. And the lawyer's father was so thankful and everything else, and found out about the pay it forward and everything else, to the point where at the very beginning of the movie, you see that there is this standoff, and these guys come out and they rush, and this guy from the press is there. And next thing you know, his car gets totally smashed. And he's like, "Oh my God, that's my car. I can't even drive it. Nothing. It's totaled." That lawyer is there. He says, "It looks like you're having a run of bad luck. Here, take my car." Throws him the keys to a brand new Jaguar. And this press person can't figure out what to do. He has to chase it back. And while he's chasing it back, he's telling the story. He's making it spread. So that by the end of the movie, I really would have sounded like it. They had a memorial, and all these people started coming from all over to pay their respects to the founder of Pay It Forward, which is the touching moment and seeing, like, here, the waves that you push out the goodness you have.
Because we have no idea what will come, from a good action.
Yes. I remember
No idea.
I remember a story in a newspaper where this teenage, I think it was a girl, she was planning to commit suicide that day. And all of a sudden her life was terrible and everything else. The books came out of her locker and everything else. And this person just sitting there says like, here, let me help you pick up your books and put them back. He helped her and gave her that spark. Just him helping pick up the books was enough for her to sit there and say, like, somebody saw me. Somebody helped me. And it dashed all thoughts of her committing suicide. Because she finally had hope. She found somebody that helped her, that didn't ignore her. That little moment, just as you were saying, the waves that we put out, we don't know their impact. They're ripples in the pond.
It's like you plant the seed, and then what comes from,
Then if you water it, if you don't water it, all that stuff that impacts. And then the same thing is, like, what happens to that seed? Become a tree? Does it give fruit? Does it give it shade? We have time. We're doing pretty good. So next movie I went into, finally get out of the 90s. Can you believe it? So we're doing Heaven is for Real. Book came out in 2010, and the movie came out 4 years later.
I remember that one. Is that the little boy?
It is the little boy. So obviously this is talking about near-death experiences and this little boy being able to go over and having talking to people on the other side, talking to the angels, which for us as spiritists, we know that that's like mediumistic things and everything else. But even then, I remember the very first medical spiritist congress in Washington, D.C., the very, very first one. And I remember there was a doctor from Seattle, and he was sitting there talking about researching NDEs in Seattle. And then Dr. Ian Stevenson was there, and he was talking about his near-death experience and how he would have, and where he would have his moments with Dr. Christ, as he called it. But he also mentioned that since he was a veteran, that his version of Jesus looked like the most ripped, shredded drill sergeant he ever knew. That looks like he would chew your head off in a moment, and had that gruff and tough thing, but always spoke kindly. So, just to go to Zittner saying with that one, but it was funny that saying and the fact that Dr. Stevenson was researching past life memories in the process. It's art, and it's been picked up and continued. That I was like, I wish that line of talks kept going. But obviously, that's the Spiritist Medical Congress, so they were switching away, and they were focusing more on the medical part. They went to psychology instead of researching NDEs, which was more fascinating to me, but I understand I'm not a doctor. That's why. So I don't have as many pictures from this movie, too, because but at the same time, one of the things that came to my mind was as you were watching the movie, Greg Kinnear, the father's figure, he's the priest, he's the firefighter, he's everything else, but yet he's the lost one. He's undergone so much, and he's losing his faith and everything else. And this little boy tells himself and reaffirms his faith to the point where he's sitting there and he's talking about, like he's sitting there talking, that's his picture of his grandfather, and the little boy says, yeah, I met him, he's proud of you and everything else. So it's like, they have this conversation that they were having with this, and it's reaffirming his faith. But it's like they're talking things, but yet he's answering questions. He's telling things about things that he should never even know about. And same thing with the mother. Here was at this one here, where she was shooken up because he starts speaking of his sister
that he never knew before.
She died.
Yeah.
She died at birth. So. And it's like the fact that he's sitting there like, I talked to my sister and everything else, and says like, because, and realizing that mother was hurting herself mentally and spiritually because she had lost this like another child, and why was it taken away and everything else. And it's to the point where he's sitting here as a messenger, this little boy, their child is the one giving them the reassurance, the one that's giving them the messages, the one that's giving them the hope. But one of the important things that I started to see in this movie is that towards the end, he was sitting there like, well, there was another person there. And I said, who was it? Who was it? And he says, well, there he is on TV. And guess who it is? It's Akiana showing off her picture of the Prince of Peace at age 8 on Oprah. As I was doing my research, I didn't realize that Akiana had also had a near-death experience herself. I did not know that, and I didn't dig deep into it and research this. But to sit there and see that Akiana, and now we're finally out of movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I had.
Now we're into art.
We're into art. I can't do music because one can't play it, and you're limited by less than 30 seconds. Otherwise, you get in trouble for licensing fees and all that other stuff. So I'm sorry, internet. No music in this one here, because we could definitely go into that one. So, but I am sticking with the artwork here, and we have the most famous piece probably of all, the Prince of Peace. I did get the chance to see this in Texas. I mentioned this to Tanya Schwartz, since it's about a 45-minute drive from Austin. So, and I did get a chance to, when I was on my mission to Fargo, I left Austin, and when I found it was only 45 minutes away, I detoured and I went there, and I ended up being 6 hours behind in my travel time, but it was worth it to go there and see this work and seeing her other original works at the beloved studio in that. And I believe she's still here in Jupiter, Florida, is where she's based at now. But she painted this at 8 years old. Obviously, she's borrowing a person as a frame of reference. But yet, so many people have said that this is Jesus. This is a personification of Jesus. Even to the point where prints of this movie, or I'm sorry, not movie, prints of this picture have survived burns. Like I've seen a church burns down, but yet you see it, and here's this picture hanging on the wall, perfectly intact. Fire burns everything around it, doesn't touch that wall that it's hanging on, leaves it alone. Multiple stories like that. I was fascinated to it. And the other thing too is that when you sit there and you look at it, and it's like, this is a girl. When she painted this, she was 8 years old. And then moving on to this next picture here, for those of us that have definitely fallen in love with the Andre Louis series of books, we always read Nassolar and everything else. So this next image here, Supreme Sanctuary, she painted at age 11, is another one that I was like, now that feels like Nassolar. That feels like a spiritual city. In fact, with all the color, the vibrancy, the light, and the peace, the serenity. You can just post that up there, and you can almost feel the meditation. You just close your eyes, and just staring at it, you can just meditate on just that photo. You can get lost in all the colors and everything else. And again, here's a girl at 11 years old painting this masterpiece. And bear in mind, she's a dual prodigy. She also, not only is she a talented artist, she's a talented poet as well. So, and then for Vanessa Anceloni, many years ago, she wrote a book with, I think she also did this with Divaldo Franco. I forget. It's been a while. Called, I think it's like The Indigo Children.
I remember that.
So she was sitting here talking about the Indigo Children. That's where she talked to Divaldo, and Divaldo had this little boy that called him out for being a liar, not a lawyer, but a liar and everything else, because he was saying, like, I didn't want to take anyone today. And this little boy came and said, liar, you are here. You should take a person. They came to see you. And he called them to it. And Divaldo says, okay. He goes and takes it and everything else. So we have the Indigo Children, and then they mention Akiana as a crystal child. And that she's one of the ones that are the guides. Now, if we start pulling in the other books like Manuel de Miranda, then we could say, is she one of the ones that came from Alcyone to help guide us and to lead us into the world of regeneration? And you can kind of see, especially in the younger arts, I noticed that as she's progressed and as now she's old, I think she'll be 31 this year. So she's a young lady and everything in this regard. But it's like she says she has all these libraries, and she has to figure out which library gets to speak and influence her art. So she has to dance around this. But when I was preparing for this one, I definitely wanted the more esoteric pictures. So I did Returning Home, age 12. You're sitting here and looking at this, and you sit there and you look on this image, and you sit there and you stare at it. It's like, could that be Mount Everest? Could that be a natural Tower of Babel? Is that a spiritual peak? And how it leads on to the next world, the mansion? But look at everything else she paints around the way. Other planets. I mean, even on the staircase, there's other planets. But then she's also got the atom. Mm-hmm. She's got all these wonderful things hiding through in this image. So at this point, it's like, where are you going to go? To the point where it said, again, if Jesus says, in my Father's house, there are many mansions. It's like, she's like sitting here painting a doorway, which could be to one or many. Who's to say that that one blue light with the staircase is not reflected in the ones around it? And if that's the way how we will return home. This next one here is titled Faithfulness, age 16. This is another one where, let's see, I don't know if I can interact with the screen. No, I cannot, unfortunately.
Is that a video or?
No, it's just another still image, but I was sitting here wanting to point out, which I don't think I can do, because you look and there's again, hiding things around.
Yeah, there is a tree.
There's a tree and everything else, but there's like, if you were able to zoom in and look at different elements, they're saying like, you can kind of see everything else. Like, here's this little girl, she's resting her head on a world. And she's got this dreamlike thing where she's sitting here, she's dreaming, what could the world be like? What can be? And in this world, so you don't know, is she manifesting the world? Is she creating the world? Or is the world falling apart around her? And she's just holding on to that little bit of home, her home, and being faithful and remembering that faithfully. And this is one of the things, another reason why I'm so fascinated with her artwork is Akiana, even though she has her message on when she painted, what speaks to her, it leaves the door open for other interpretations. You can see other things, you can see other meanings, you can divine other aspects of it. Same thing with going back to the Prince of Peace picture from age 8. How many people have seen that painting and had revelations, had their come to Jesus, their Damascus moment, and sit there and says, like, they see this and are awestruck to the point where it's like they've had this. And having been introduced to, like, my last picture, the last slide in here is a picture of me with her, and it brought up the reference from 2,000 years ago when Publius Lentulus all of a sudden has this serenity just hit him. He feels this force field of serenity. And it takes a while, but then eventually he physically meets Jesus before his crucifixion and everything else. He physically has a conversation with Jesus in the flesh. And has that serenity, and that serenity follows him around, and it stays with him after Jesus has passed. But then once he gets outside of Jesus' influence, then like the darkness comes back in. And oddly enough, I had that same feeling, much smaller scale, with her.
She's there, it feels like that everything's falling apart, or super, and she's just,
She has that radiant
I guess she
energy.
has that, and maybe also like the trust, knowing that,
Mm-hmm.
she's protected, or,
Yes. And it radiates out, and it gives that hope and everything else. The other thing too, I noticed too.
Oh, faithfulness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was one of the ones that came to my mind was sitting there, it's like how much junk disappears in her influence. You get close to her. Do you think about politics? Do you think about money and finances? Those all go away. So this is another one that I absolutely loved and adored. The light. Why? Could that be your astral body? Are you doing an astral projection, as they say in the medium's book? Is that your paraspirit? Again, the light. Are you going off into the oneness of space, where the doctrine teaches us, which is a different rule that is outside the laws of
so
physics.
Realistic.
Yeah.
It's almost look like the photos from.
Yeah, it's like a telescopic image. Now, this is now obviously it doesn't have an age, so this is after she turned 18.
Mm-hmm.
So she's now an adult artist at this point in time, but still this idea is like you're walking out to the pier, but instead of walking out into the ocean, you're watching out into space. And then she's got a nebula out here as its influence, saying you can go, but again, where do you go? If each star in there is a solar system, and each solar system has planets, how many of those little dots of light could you go to? And even off in the top, up in the corner in the top left, you can sit there and see little pictures of galaxies. Mm-hmm. So it's not just stars and galaxies. It's like you're going out into the light. You're going out to the next venture. Here's another one that I pulled upon, and one that was really powerful to me, especially for being in here in Spiritism. It's called regeneration. And one of the things that got me is that here she is, she's doing these pictures of all these plants, but yet they have an aura around them. Mm-hmm. And you see them being lifted, and they're being taken out. They're like partially connected, partially submerged. So one's almost free, and you kind of sit there, but at the same time, you have that spark at the top, that divineness that's to it, and you get the connection, almost like what we read through with Andre Louise and everything else, the silver cords. But you can also see like the one that's kind of like stuck in. Maybe that one's kind of like trapped in umbral, the lower zones. So I think looks like I can barely make that. Almost looks like 2019, but I don't think that's right. So, but I was sitting here looking at this and these images of plants that all have vibrance of life, and you can see the light at the top, radiating out. It's radiating light and hope, but it is also grounded, but yet it also kind of like has that aura. That I won't say paraspirit in this one because it's still in there and it's encased. But it's one of the
very interesting.
So, and I picked, and like I said, I was looking for the more esoteric pictures, so that are the more spiritually based. So, and then of course, finding out that the Prince of Peace, the one that she painted at 8, went missing. It was stolen.
Really?
But it has its own story, long story to it, which unfortunately I don't have enough time to go over. So since she did another painting when she was older, I think. So she did this one. Obviously, it's a lot better quality. You can see that she's mastered her talent, but it has that same vibe and things to it. It doesn't quite have the same power as the original, but it still does. But you sit there and you look at it, and you can sit there and see like when he has like the threads and everything else, where it's like you see the serenity, you see the like you can see that almost see the love in his eyes. And you can sit there and see, like, he's looking out over
Yeah,
us.
so in this one, he's not really looking straight at you. It's almost like it's looking out.
Mm-hmm.
The
And if I were to go back to that picture, the first one, there says one of the things that Akiana did was she was there and says, like, she did it with like the half light, but yet the other eye pierces the darkness. So it's like, and she kind of does the same thing here, where you still see, like, he's got the light to one side, but he's still there in the dark. He's still watching over for you, and you can see like the loose threads there on his tunic, robe.
Yeah.
And then obviously I'm going to finish with the photo of me and her that I took down in Miami last year. But one of the reasons that I kind of liked it so much is like these were originals behind her, and one of them was the light. You can see the light was right there behind her. But she has these other ones too. She has this picture of the birth of creation, of the little baby embryo. And it was amazing because you say, when you start look at it, if I get my ugly face out of the way, you'd realize you see the blue, the reds, the greens, and yellows, all these colors swirling in to give life, vitality. Like if we were using the chakras and the colors and everything else, all coming into and influencing this child, or in the reverse, it's radiating them out. You don't know which way they're going. Is it coming in? Is it going out? Here you have the choice of life. You got the hourglass up on the right with where they're doing almost like she's kind of like mimicking the touch between God and Adam from So that was in that. There's some other ones, and I forget the name of that one that's in the top above the light that had the where it's like you get because I think they're like painting the stars in the sky. So it's like, I remember that with. I know it's not. Some centers don't read books of Ramatis, but they're talking where he talks about the sidereal engineers, the angels that build solar systems, that are grander than Jesus in the scale that Jesus wasn't responsible for Earth. And here's angels that were responsible for the galaxy, the solar systems, and everything within it. But that was, like I said, a picture of me with her from, it's been about a year now. So it was wonderful to see her.
So does she have like a gallery where she has, or she kind of travels?
She's been traveling. She has her own Akiani art gallery that you can do online. Like this is everything here behind her was either a limited edition reprint or the original itself. And of course, they're commanding some big money.
Of course.
The other one too is she was her right before this event. She finished a painting of her boyfriend at the time, Sebastian, which is on the wall on the other side. Obviously, that one was not for sale, but she did that for him and like literally finished it right before this event. So he had never seen it until they unveiled it, and it was a picture of him playing the guitar.
Oh, that's nice.
And I sat and I talked to him for a while, and it says like, and he was a very nice man, and I could sit there and say like I know he will always be in her shadow. But there's a certain type of person that can be in a person's shadow. And
again, what we may perceive as shadow, he's actually giving the support that she needs.
That is exactly what I was sitting here saying. It's like,
because it's like she has that gift, but then she also needs someone that will be able to. Not everybody, like you said, can be the shadow of, someone.
Yes.
And she's the artist.
Or to use a phrase from Peter Pan, the second star to the right, straight on morning.
Yeah.
Well, who's the first star? If she's the second star, straight on till morning, he was the first star to give the guidance. We can't do a constellation with just one star.
No. And we don't work alone.
So. No. And that's, again, part of this, and it's one of the reasons why I was inspired to do this series, especially this. Like I said, I would have done more of these if I could and would have wanted to, But then again, that would have been like probably pushed me to the point where I'm obsessing that way, and we need to avoid that. So I had to break it up and pick other things too. I was looking into bringing in like the works of Leonardo, Michelangelo, all the things, even Salvador Dali, since we have his work up there in Tampa at the Dali Museum. And there was a few of his that I would have picked, because even though he is a surrealist and everything else, he had interesting ways of hiding messages within messages. There's one picture that says that it looks great until you back up. It's like there's a picture of a woman on the stairs. But then when you back up far enough away, it then becomes a pixelated version of Abraham Lincoln. So it becomes two pictures in one. With that, I just want to remind everyone online that even though there's no Spiritism in any of these things here, we can tie it with topics, we can tie it with things we have learned within Spiritism. We can see this is helping us open the door to reach out, touch new people, open them up to new ideas in a way that may be safer to them, instead of hitting them over the head with the full doctrine up front. And it may be a way for a segue where we can have the conversation and have the safety. And maybe in the future, that will be the way we do try to help introduce people to things. I didn't bring in Harry Potter. I didn't bring in Lord of the Rings. There's a whole host of things I could pull upon that have messages. Chronicles of Narnia tied directly with God. If we were to use those influences and bring them in, sit there and says, like, if you were to read Narnia, put it through a Spiritist lens, what would you get? With that, I'll do our closing prayer and for the night. Dear Lord, wonderful Master, thank you for giving us this opportunity to learn and to share. I hope that everyone here will be inspired and take a chance to look at things in a new light, in a different light. Not with rose-colored glasses, but with the eyes of the Spirit. So we can see the love, the morality, the warmth that can be found within the art around us. Be it written, moving, still, auditory, however it may be, we can find our message in the myriad of passages, the myriad of ways, so we can be open to hearing more of your wonderful messages, to call out to us and say, be better. Make your life a masterpiece, as God has made us his masterpiece. Let us go forth here, put our own proverbial brushes to canvas, painting not only our own artworks, but being the brush of God to paint a better world around us. In your name we pray, amen.
Those are beautiful paintings. You know how to